This happened to me about 5 years ago, and it's still the most terrifying and life-altering thing I've ever experienced. Everything I'm about to tell you is 100% true, and it's all happened to me. A little background. This happened in Canada during the summer of 2014. I had recently married my longtime partner. Both of us were poor students at the time, living together in an Edmonton apartment. Even though we did not have much to our names, we were happy. This was one of the very few moments of innocence in life where everything seemed easy. Both the weekends were spent with our friends at a cinema nearby that wasn't very far from home. It wasn't glamorous, but they were low-ticket prices, so it was our little ritual. A night on the town for under $10 was a dream of our pinch budget. One Thursday evening, I got a call from our crew inviting us to go see the midnight showing of the new Batman film. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift at the cafe where I worked. Every muscle in my body was screaming to go lie down, and honestly, I almost said no. Crashing in and getting to bed early sounded good, but I didn't want to miss it. I had been waiting to watch that movie for a while, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? A little loss of sleep didn't look like it would be an issue. We met at the theater entrance at 10:30 p.m. As we stepped inside, we passed by humongous cardboard cutouts of Batman and Catwoman. Inside, the lobby was filled with the scent of popcorn heat and the hum of excited chatter. To the right of the door, the ticket booth was positioned, and overhead a lighted board listed all of the showtimes for the movies. Thankfully, one of our mates had already gotten tickets earlier during the day, him being the organizer that he always was, and so we cut through the queue and strode straight to the entrance. The attendant grinned and waved us toward Theater 6, down the corridor to the right. Oh, if only I'd been told what we were in store for. Oh, if only I'd even had a whisper. There was already a murderer among us, and he was dressed as one of the crowd. And as I walked across that threadbare purple carpet to Theater 6, I had no idea I was about to take my last breath. I think a great deal about that night these days. If I knew, would I have screamed, pulled the fire alarm, warned everyone to get out? But I was only another person walking in to see a movie, none the better for knowing the danger just ahead. The hallway curled into a U-bend, and Theater 6, one of the largest screening rooms in the building, was designed to hold large premiere crowds. The screen was dark and motionless as we entered, no previews yet to play. We still had about an hour and a half before the film began. We entered from the right side of the room, so the seats were all to our left. I remember being amazed at how packed it was already. It did not look like we would be able to sit together. There was a small little area nearer the front that was flat to the floor and straight in front of the screen where there were plenty of empty seats, but no one was willing to occupy it. Having your neck bent for 2 hours while viewing a film just did not appeal to me. Then my friend spotted there was a row higher up that had 5 vacant seats together. Perfect for our group. We speeded up the stairs before others could take our seats. My husband Marcus got the last seat at the end. I sat beside him, then my friend Rachel beside me, then her boyfriend Josh, and finally our friend Eric in the aisle seat. We were all in high spirits. We laughed, joked around, and chatted as we normally did. Finally, Rachel, Josh, and Eric went to go get snacks in the lobby. Marcus and I stayed behind and watched people streaming in. The theater lights were still on, so we could see everyone perfectly. There were just so many people wearing Batman gear, t-shirts, hoodies, and even one man wearing a cape and mask. It was a lively, buzzing crowd. And even though it was a Thursday night, school was out for the summer, so there were lots of kids in the audience too. I remember one little girl in particular. She had blue eyes and blonde hair and appeared to be around 8 years old. She was a few seats away from us in the same row and kept running back and forth between the lobby, returning each time with some different snack, popcorn, candy, soda. It was as if she had a mission. She was so joyful. They were all. There was excitement and anticipation in the air. At last, the lights went down and the preview started. A garish animated message flashed onto the screen, telling us to go get snacks, switch off our phones, and note the emergency exits. I got a fleeting glimpse of the bright green exit signs to either side of the screen, but didn't think twice, as I always do. I vaguely remember a preview for the new Superman movie, but the rest of the previews were a daze. When the movie eventually started, the audience applauded. The words, "The Dark Knight Rises," filled the screen, and the first scene opened with Bane hijacking an airplane. It caught me right away. The suspense, the anticipation, it had me glued to my seat. But as the movie rolled into the slower scenes, I found myself noticing the exhaustion of my day. I'd been up for nearly 20 hours. My eyes drooped, and I thought that I would close them for a bit during the uneventful parts so I could get some respite. I barely remember the scene where Batman and Catwoman fought each other. They were just backdrops while I was drifting out and in. Then, suddenly, a huge boom shook the theater. It was on the left side, and it woke me up. For a second, I thought it was a firework. The smell that came afterward was like fireworks too, strong and chemical, like gunpowder. My first instinct was that someone was pulling a prank, maybe tossing firecrackers into the crowd. That's where I saw him. In the lower right part of the screen, there was a black silhouette, a just black shape amidst the glowing film scenery. There started to come light from him, rapid, quick flashes. It didn't dawn on me at first, but time slowed down. My brain ceased to function. I couldn't think, couldn't respond. Everything was stationary, as though the world had frozen. Marcus shifted before I could. He lunged at me and grabbed on, tugging me down to the floor, pinning me underneath him. That's when the sounds rushed back into my mind. The shots, the cries, the film still going over them. It was chaos. The lights I had seen were not fireworks. They were bullets, actual bullets. Panic took hold. I was on the ground, exposed, praying the bullets ripping through the theater would miss me. Shrapnel buzzed past, and something hard hit my head, cutting through a hank of my hair. When I shifted my hand, searing metal burned my palm. I was on my back and had a view of everything. The ceiling flashed with bursts from the screen. Our popcorn was scattered everywhere. Rachel, Josh, and Eric were on the floor with us. Eric's legs stuck out into the aisle. There wasn't enough room for him to remain entirely behind the seats. Rachel's water bottle had exploded, and water dripped onto my face. The gun smoke clung heavy, choking me. My eyes brimmed up, and I started coughing frantically. The tear gas filled the air. My nose stung. My throat was burning. And then I caught a whiff of that nasty metal smell and blood. It surrounded me. Immediately, I began to feel the wetness trickling down the lower part of my body. I thought at first it was the water, but it wasn't. Suddenly, everything was ominously quiet. The gunfire just stopped. Not tapered off, just stopped. Tommy shouted, "Let's get out of here!" His voice cracked with tear gas and fear. Without delaying, we seized the moment. We ran. We sprinted down the stairs in front of the screen, stumbling over dropped popcorn and shattered phones. All was indistinct. The room was thick with smoke and gas, and the emergency light's red light made it look like we were trapped in some kind of dream. The large green exit sign above the door was a beacon. It looked like a mile away, when in fact, it was only halfway across the room. We pushed into this small closet-sized room where the door out was, bumping into each other in darkness. We couldn't even find the walls, let alone the handle. We were all yelling, banging against the walls, completely blind and beside ourselves with terror. The gas burned our eyes, and the shock made everything seem unreal. And then, it was finally, my fingers found the cold metal of the door handle. I shoved against it. The door swung open, and the light from a street lamp outside poured in like a deluge. For an instant, I couldn't even process it. It was light, outside, real air, real space. We rushed so hard that we all fell out, landing on the cold concrete like rag dolls. Samantha lost her pink flip-flops just outside that door. It seemed like we'd just escaped from hell. I scrambled up and fled for my life, and something was weird. My legs felt wet, warm. I glanced down and stopped. They were wet, totally soaked in blood. I'd believed I'd been injured initially. I felt my body shaking for a wound, but there was nothing. I wasn't shot, not even a scratch. The blood wasn't mine. I turned around. It was then that I saw Brock, my husband. Leo and some kid that I'd never even met were supporting him between them. Brock's right leg, it was ripped to pieces, torn apart. There was a massive tear in it, and his foot was hanging by a thread. It just dangled there still. The shock would have swept him out of the theater. For some reason, on one foot, he'd somehow avoided it. I didn't know how he'd even gotten into motion, let alone ran. Maybe adrenaline, maybe instinct. Whatever, after he crashed outside, he couldn't stand up again. I yelled, really loudly. So loudly that the construction workers on either side could hear me. Behind the theater, there was a narrow parking lot, then a strip of grass, and then the road. A group of road workers had been working on that road, and when they heard me yell and saw us running, they stopped and just gazed. I have no idea why, but I remember their faces exactly. Perplexed. Stunned. We pulled Brock, well, they pulled him, along the sidewalk to the corner of the building. It was a ways, and by the time we got there, Brock collapsed again. His body just collapsed. He said he couldn't move anymore. I sat down beside him. Blood was pooling under his leg now, thick and dark and spreading. I turned around and saw the path that we had created. A red path all the way from the door. It was like something out of a horror film. Tommy was nearby in the parking lot. He too had been shot, once in the hip, once in the knee. He was unable to walk too. The young man who helped carry Brock was hurt too. His parents were with him, his mom bleeding a lot and leaning against the wall. She seemed about to pass out. Apparently, the whole family had escaped with us when the shooting had let up. I guess they, like us, had read that brief moment of silence as their only option. We were all lucky. The shooting hadn't stopped. It was still occurring inside. I tore my shirt open and held it against Brock's leg, attempting to stop the bleeding. His leg was limp, cold, dead, as if it was no longer a part of him. I trembled horribly. My arms, my hands, covered in his blood. The feel of it. Never again do I want to recall it. It felt sticky and thick, like it was seeping into my skin. The police came quickly, just a minute or two later. We were just 1 block from the station. Red and blue lights lit up the night, bouncing off buildings, making everything look even more unreal. A woman officer stayed with us, keeping everyone calm while we waited for paramedics. But they took their time coming. Brock bawled for nearly 20 minutes. His eyes began to shut. His voice was a whisper. I could see him disappearing. Finally, an ambulance came. Paramedics ran across the lawn on a stretcher. They loaded him onto it and sped back across the grass. I wished I could accompany him, but the ambulance already had room filled with another injured individual. I had to remain behind. So I wandered alone. I made my way back to the front of the theater. Among crying, screaming, searching for loved ones, I looked down and saw my shirt was gone. My arms were sticky with blood. There was a pool of blood where Brock had fallen. Everything felt unreal, like I was living in someone else's bad dream. People saw how alone and upset I was. Strangers tried to comfort me. Others gave rides to other hospitals. Nobody knew where Brock had been taken. The police were sealing off the parking lot. It was 2 a.m., just as dark as coal, and I was shivering in my undershirt and shorts. The cold sliced into my skin, but I barely noticed. The strobing lights of the scores of police cars were almost too bright to look at. The large van came with the sticker, Crime Scene Investigation Unit. That's when it really hit home. I started to feel sick. My stomach turned over. I wanted to vomit, but somehow I didn't. Along the way, the police let people out. I jumped in my truck and left. I hadn't even taken my cell phone from my apartment kitchen counter. I didn't even call my parents. I hadn't even written down a destination. I just kept driving, stunned and angry and scared. Was Brock going to die? Only 4 weeks earlier, we were to have celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary. Somehow, by dawn, I arrived at the hospital. It was in the next city over, which was about 45 minutes away. I can't even begin to describe the relief I felt when I saw it. The nurses and doctors were kind and reserved. They checked me over, made sure I weren't injured, then left me sitting in the ICU room where Brock would be transferred after surgery. He was alive. That's all that counted. Tommy too survived, but not all of them. The next day, a few hours rest on a hospital couch. I received the figures. 12 individuals killed, over 70 injured. They initially estimated 15 dead, but that was 12. That little blonde girl who was sitting in my section, she didn't make it. She was killed there, right near us, shot multiple times. A policeman who was distraught tried to save her. He carried her out and took her to a hospital, but it was too late. Tommy had been transported to a different hospital. He needed surgery, but the bullets passed through without hitting any vital organs. He fully recovered. Brock wasn't so lucky. He'd lost nearly half of his blood. The doctors informed him that if he'd come even a few minutes later, he would have been dead. They tried to save his leg, but eventually, they had to amputate it. He stayed in the hospital for 21 days. It's been a long time since that night. We've healed in some ways. The scars are still there though, not just physical ones. That part of the story, the panic, the escape, the blood, that was horrifying. But the truly disturbing part was the shooter himself. That story is a whole different nightmare. I was a courier for a local delivery app, and that particular Thursday night had been completely wild. It was one of those constant shifts, order after order, barely a moment to draw breath, let alone pee. I'd been chugging water throughout the night from a brutal summer heat wave ravaging northern Arizona. You know the kind, where the asphalt on the roads is still warm even after dark, and your shirt clings to you in minutes. I wasn't so much worried about bathroom breaks because I figured I'd somehow manage to get to stop eventually. But yeah, that never came to pass. I was on my way to drop off another order on the outskirts of town, just past the university district, when the need to pee hit me like a semi. I was fine 1 second, and then I felt like I was going to burst. Luckily, I was close to the drop-off location, so I thought I would just drop off the food super quick and run into a gas station close by. It was on Larchmont Drive, a place I'd been to a few times before, but as I got there, something didn't feel right. The entire house was pitch black dark. Not a single light on, not even the flicker of a television screen or that warm hallway light you always see through a window. It felt suspiciously quiet too. The nearest streetlight along the sidewalk was broken, so the front yard was even darker than all the rest of them on the block. Anyway, this side of town was pretty much filled with students from the local university, but being in mid-July, there were a lot of the rentals unoccupied. Still, clearly, someone had made this order, so somebody must have been home. Maybe they were the type that sat in the dark, or sat outside. Okay, whatever. I just didn't feel like going out and rapping on what appeared to be a completely vacant door without verifying first. It was almost 9:30 at night, and I did not feel like getting creeped out. And, to put salt in the wound, my air conditioning in the vehicle is barely working. With 2 steaming pizzas wedged on the passenger seat, the whole cabin was hotter than an oven. I close the door whenever I can to keep whatever cool air I have. I tapped the number listed on the delivery app, and after a couple rings, a woman answered, kind of breathless and impatient, like she'd been mid-sprint or something. "Yeah?" she blurted. I kept it short. "Hey, I've got your delivery, but the house looks empty. Just wanted to make sure I'm at the right place." There was a pause, followed by her gasping again. "Yeah, I'm not home." I was well past the point of being polite. My bladder was straining like one about to explode. So I answered a bit more roughly than I normally would. Well, I am here within the delivery slot and you were supposed to pay cash. So I don't have time to stand around. Maybe plan better next time. The moment I'd spoken, I regretted how I'd spoken, but her voice came back, this time more clear. She was a young-sounding, pleasant-sounding, quite nervous-sounding voice. "Oh my God, I'm sorry. I was running down the street and couldn't hear you. I just turned off my AirPods," she said in a rush. "I completely lost track of time at work. I knew you were coming. That's why I'm running home right now, literally. Don't go, please. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Just 5 minutes, please." She couldn't have been any older than 24 or 25. And then, inexplicably, I remembered this house. I delivered there 1 or 2 times before. She was always friendly, tipped enough, and never gave any trouble. I didn't enjoy being curt with her. I attempted to cover it up as I glanced about indifferently for a place to relieve myself. "No need, really. It's just the heat making tricks of me. Take your time, I'll wait." I hung up and kept on casing the block. All of the other homes had lights on their porches, and there were even a few people standing out on theirs or lingering around inside. It was a neighborhood that was up close and personal, no private little nooks or patches of trees to retreat behind. And, of course, I had just tossed out the empty water bottle I had stashed away from the previous delivery. Clever, wasn't it? It was approaching emergency levels now. I weighed the options and determined the sole solution was the spindly line of shrubs in front of her building. The broken streetlight cast the space as black as the rest of the block. She was not yet home. I didn't have anyone else in view. And we don't wear uniforms. So even if someone spotted me, they could not make the connection to the company. I told myself it was not the worst. Dogs get taken for walks there all the time. What's one human during a heat wave? So I scurried over to the largest bush near the front step. Her yard wasn't exactly a yard, more like a narrow strip bordered with flowers and bushes. The tallest bush was maybe 4 feet from her door. It was the only one big enough to hide me and keep splatter away from the siding. I made a quick glance around again, unzipped, and started to go. And then, hardly even a split second in, I knew something was off. The sound it produced, it wasn't what I was accustomed to. It wasn't the gentle scratching you'd hear from hitting leaves. It was deeper, more substantial, like I was hitting something dense. Something that shouldn't have been there. I started panicking, wondering if maybe I was off target. But I was already halfway through, and once you do that, there's not much you can do to stop. I continued squinting into the blackness, hoping I had just clipped a rock or something and could just veer a little to one side. That's when I heard it, a voice, a low voice. "What the fuck?" It wasn't angry the way you might expect from a neighbor catching you urinating off their grass. It was startled, scared. Like someone wasn't where they were supposed to be and I'd just blown their cover. I didn't have time to even really process what I heard before a man emerged from the bushes. He sprinted right past me, fast, brushing off what I can only describe as the last little bit of my pee stream that had hit him squarely in the face. I'm fairly certain I actually hit him in the face, because he stopped for a second to spit on the ground. Hard. Then he ran off again, disappearing into the night. I couldn't see where he disappeared after a couple of strides, but just as I was starting to get my wits about me again, I heard the unmistakable rush of a car peeling off somewhere in the distance. Tires squealing, quickly, like someone attempting to lose themselves. By then, my eyes had kind of gotten used to the dark. I could barely make out his height, his build, his hoodie. Not really detailed, but enough to know this wasn't some elderly guy on a smoke break. I just stood there, still exposed, frozen. My body forgot how to move. The reality of what just happened was too overwhelming. My mind tried to convince me I'd misunderstood something. It scrambled for a logical explanation, anything that could make this seem normal. Were those bushes part of someone's yard? Maybe there was an open window behind them? But something inside me was screaming, loud and clear. "Guy, hoodie, 90 degrees. That guy was not out there smelling the roses. Even so, I wasn't quite ready to accept it. Rather than racing back to my vehicle like any sane human being would have done, I got close to the bushes. Yeah, I stepped right up next to them. I needed this to make sense. I wanted to think that there was some reason this guy would be all the way behind those bushes. I took my phone and turned on the light. Here is something you have to know. At times, what you might see in darkness using a light is worse than what you never thought of before in the darkness. That was when I saw the bag. A torn, frayed drawstring bag, half hidden behind the bush. The edge of it was damp, most probably mine. Still dazed, I bent to retrieve it. My head still muttered, "This'll make it all make sense. There'll be something in here that makes sense of everything." Yeah, made sense, all right. There was a large, keen knife within, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. That was when something within me snapped. All the adrenaline, all the instincts that had been blocked out in confusion and denial hit me simultaneously like a freight train. I dropped the bag as if it were on fire. Then I ran. I mean sprinted. Across the street, straight to my car, slammed the door and was already pressing the gas as my foot hit the pedal. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed space. I got to somewhere on the road and ended up running into a red light, and I knew I couldn't drive like this. I shook too violently, thought too fast. I drove into a lot of a 24-hour drugstore and stopped and attempted to breathe, my heart thumping against my side. That was when it came to me. Who do I call? The police? The girl? I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was likely 10 seconds. I decided, call the police first. Because what if this wasn't about me? What if she was the one? What if this was something more? But as I reached for my phone, a different possibility slithered into my mind. What if there wasn't a girl? I started doubting all things. Maybe it was a setup. Maybe she never lived there. Maybe the phone call was part of the scheme. Everyone has seen that Evil Genius documentary. Maybe I was the pawn. She did sound odd on the phone. Breathless. Not home. My head was spinning. I still called 911 though. The operator was cool, much cooler than I was. He guided me through it, kept me grounded, but I was going downhill. Describing what happened in the outside world made it sound even more ridiculous. You must rescue this girl, unless she's not real. But I did speak with her. But maybe she's an imposter. But the man is real. I peed on him. I didn't do it on purpose, but maybe she is real. So you must go and get her. But then maybe it's a trap, or not. Maybe he was pursuing her, or pursuing me. Finally, the operator just told me to please be quiet. Just breathe. Just stay on the line. My phone rang at that point. An incoming call. From the customer. I couldn't pick up. 911 was still on, so I let it ring. Then a text message. Hey, I'm here, don't see you? I informed 911 that she'd just arrived. They told me officers were in the area, but in my head were what ifs. What if she was real? What if she just walked right into the danger? I couldn't live with that. I had to turn back. I hung up 911, turned the car around, and drove back, sweating bullets the whole way, whispering, fuck, 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 like a broken record. She was walking between the cars on the street, looking around like nothing was wrong. I flashed my headlights and waved her over. She smiled and came running, as if it were just another night. No fear in her eyes. She thought I needed her to get the pizza from the back seat. I did not know what to say. Did not want to scare her with a crazy mix of words like I did with 911. So I just said what mattered most. Someone was in your bushes. I'm calling the police. I don't know where he is now. Please, get in the car. I was trembling with my hands out, holding my phone aloft for her to view the call display. She got in immediately. Not because of the phone, because she knew. Later, I discovered she had met the man immediately when I spoke to her of him. Her ex. Abusive, threatening, clearly insane enough to be in her head the second I said somebody was hiding behind her bushes. We rode a few minutes to where the police arranged for us and waited. They came not much later. I gave my statement, she gave hers, and then she called to thank us, informed us she was going to leave an enormous tip. I wasn't around when she called, so one of the kids in the shop answered and accepted it. Manager informed me next time she orders, we fill her up with so much free pizza she'll be good for a year. It's been years since this happened, but I never quite recovered from it. Even though that guy wasn't coming after me, even though it wasn't my tail at the center of it, I still find myself thinking about it all the time. The knife, the tape, the pills, the way that I almost brushed it all off, the way that I almost argued myself out of something being wrong. I only share this story on special occasions. Not many people even know I went through it at all. But every now and then I just need to get it out, because it changed me. It broke something inside me that I didn't know could be broken. To the man in the bushes, no matter who you are or where you are, let's never meet again.